California Governor Gavin Newsom visited Florida yesterday because he was getting out of California just like everybody else, where he met with students from the new College of Florida campus, who, according to the Sarasota Herald Tribune, are dealing with Florida Governor Ron Desantis' quote conservative higher education experiment. During his surprise visit to the Sunshine State, Newsom made a stab at DeSantis, telling students, "I'm crawling out of my skin for you. I want you to know you're not alone. You matter." He has one thing that is common with everything he's doing: bullying and intimidating vulnerable communities. USA Today reports the visit to meet the students was a last-minute add-on to the trip Newsom was taking through Republican-controlled states in the South, where he was criticizing certain policies of red state leaders, according to USA Today.
According to the Sarasota Herald Tribune, New College, which is Florida's public honors college, has been known as a progressive institution and, as of late, has been the target of many of DeSantis' decisions, including firing the former president and removing the office in charge of, quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives.
So it's interesting to see Newsom coming to Florida. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion of people fleeing the state of California. Newsom coming to Florida. People have been leaving California for places like Texas and Florida, in part due to concerns about crime, I think, and also I think
it's just cost of living.
Cost of living, too. Some of the frustration with the COVID mandates. Look, obviously, what DeSantis is specifically doing at New College, I don't really see the point or the necessity of it. My view would be like, if you want to make a conservative, there can be a conservative college, and there can be an artsy liberal school, and there can be as many schools, and then everyone should go to the one that they want to go to, instead of like imposing your values on each and every school, is what I would like to get away from.
Yeah, and I think that's the argument I think that Gavin Newsom is making. And I love the nickname, the Gavinator, that you created. I want to make sure that the world knows.
I said that, and then I made a mistake, and we started over again.
The Gavinator.
The Gavinator.
Now, as someone who is teaches in higher education, I am very concerned about constraints put on academic lessons. I think I was reading an article where a student was saying, They think we're reading the Communist Manifesto. And I'm like, and the kid was a political science major. I'm like, you should be reading the Communist Manifesto as a political science major. Mm-hmm. Not that you have to agree with it or accept it, but these are the texts, these are important texts for understanding the world. So the idea that we want to close people off to academic concepts and academic ideas, and the idea that, even we're okay with making certain people uncomfortable in a college environment is troubling to me.
Yeah, I think if the efforts are concentrated at the higher ed level, and especially the K through 12 level, at replacing or getting rid of some of the kind of DEI administrative side of things that I and many conservatives have argued can actually get in the way of academic freedom if everyone feels like they have to, follow these administrative dictates relating to all sorts of things, that can actually be bad. I separate that from, an authority figure trying to come in and like dictate to people what they're supposed to be teaching. I don't really think that's helpful.
Yeah, I think, even at the K-12 level, particularly for high school students, taking away some of the texts and books about Roberto Clemente and books about Rosa Parks, I think that's really troubling. Taking books out of libraries. And even on the left, there were people who, you have to have criticisms of because they wanted to take away books like To Kill a Mockingbird. These are important texts to learn about literature and learn about American life.
Roald Dahl and Agatha Christie are getting rewritten now by sensitivity readers.
Yeah, I think that, both sides need to understand that there are, if we want to have well-rounded students, well-rounded citizens, and certainly in higher education, to ban academic frameworks. Like, of course, everyone talks about critical race theory, not knowing what critical race theory really is. And honestly, critical race theory is rarely even taught at the undergraduate level. It's generally graduate education where you start learning about critical race theory. But either way, banning academic concepts sets a dangerous precedent. We should have, and conservatives who are friends of mine and conservatives, particularly, more libertarian conservatives, they were all freedom all the time. And I don't know what changed where all of a sudden now they want to take away academic concepts out of higher education. That doesn't make any sense to me.
I think it's a situation where conservative activists took a term, critical race theory, that already meant something very specific and broadly used that to define a whole host of things, some of which I don't think are great trends in education. Again, mostly on the DEI front, having administrative people, forcing people to go through trainings and struggle sessions and everything, not in an academic context, not in an educational context.
But I think that's a dangerous thing to do as well, is to take something that means something specific and then make it a catch-all.
Yeah.
There are people, obviously, who are violent, extremists in the MAGA movement. But I don't take, Nazis and say, and white nationalists and all kinds of anti-government separatists and say, yeah, that's MAGA. We're just going to put it all under the MAGA.
I very much appreciate that you don't. There are people, obviously, in the mainstream media, the Democratic coalition, who do, and there are people on the right who do as well. There's a painting with a broad brush going on.
Yeah, and I think that's a mistake, and that's something that happens with this academic framework. It's not even necessarily a specific theory, but this academic framework, and applying it to things that have nothing to do with it, or applying it to books that have nothing to do with it. You ask people about critical race theory, and they start bringing up the 1619 Project, which has nothing to do with critical race theory. So I think, we should not treat particularly adult students like children. This is one of the things, getting back to the whole COVID conversation. When we talk about COVID, a lot of conservatives always say, stop treating us like children. Fauci treated us like children. He wouldn't just tell us. And now conservatives are doing that very thing with adult students by saying, no, we can't expose them to those academic concepts. So
let me ask you this. So you're an educator. You teach at a college. What are things like now in the post-COVID landscape? Do you think your students were, in fact, really kind of ill-served by, maybe they were necessary, maybe they weren't, but the reality of trying to educate people during the pandemic?
Well, I think the quality of work hasn't dipped. I was expecting a huge drop-off with some of the new freshmen coming in because they lost a year of high school. And I haven't noticed that. I think for colleges, you can certainly make an argument that it was more necessary than for grade school. I'm a father of 3. I have 2 kids who are in school, one that's too young. And I really think that, and had we listened to the medical professionals, even the ones that the conservatives don't like, they were saying open schools. I understand the fear of the teachers union, and I'm pro-union, even teachers unions. But I think we were ill-served by those school closures. The colleges are a little different. One of the things that we saw, or that came out at my university, is a third of our faculty is over 60. Now that's another conversation we could have, but these are people that were vulnerable, and they didn't want to be in the classroom because they're vulnerable. Who knows what kind of health issues they had? And with the lack of knowledge that we had about COVID, I can understand closing higher education. But grade school education, those schools should have been open. And I can say even I was, probably wrong at that time. And I've seen my kids, and where I think they would be at academically to where they are, I think they were hurt a little bit by that loss of a year.
Well, we will have more Rising right after this. Please stay with us.